In the summer of 1932, as the United States struggled through the Great Depression, thousands of American war veterans made their way to Washington, D.C. They did not come in anger, and they did not come to fight. They came because they had run out of options. These were men who had served in World War I. Many had crossed the Atlantic as young soldiers, endured trench warfare, gas attacks, and months of uncertainty, and then returned home, believing their sacrifice would be remembered. Instead, more than a decade later, many found themselves unemployed, homeless, and standing in breadlines alongside millions of other Americans. In 1924, the U.S. government had promised World War I veterans a service bonus. The money was meant to be paid as a form of delayed compensation, but there was a condition. Veterans would not receive it until 1945. At the time, this seemed reasonable. By 1932, it felt impossible. For veterans with families to feed and no work to be found, waiting another 13 years was not an option. So they marched. Nearly 17,000 veterans, many accompanied by their wives and children, traveled to the nation's capital. Some came by train. Others walked for days. A few hitchhiked. Together, they formed the Bonus Expeditionary Force, later known as the Bonus Army. They were not armed. They made no threats. Their demand was simple: pay the bonus early so they could survive. When they arrived in Washington, the veterans established camps in several areas, the largest along the Anacostia River. Using scrap wood, metal sheets, and whatever materials they could find, they built temporary shelters. Despite the harsh conditions, the camps were organized. They set up kitchens, elected leaders, and enforced rules to maintain order. Observers noted the discipline of the camps. These were not chaotic encampments. They reflected the structure and responsibility many veterans had learned during military service. Across the country, newspapers reported on the growing presence of the Bonus Army. Public reaction was divided. Many Americans sympathized with the veterans, viewing their request as reasonable. Others, particularly in positions of power, saw the camps as a potential threat. Inside the White House, concern turned into fear. President Herbert Hoover and members of his administration worried that the veterans' presence could lead to unrest or violence. Some officials claimed the movement was being influenced by radical groups, although investigations found little evidence to support these fears. When Congress voted against early payment of the bonus, many expected the veterans to leave. Instead, thousands stayed, hoping continued pressure would change the outcome. What followed became one of the most controversial decisions of Hoover's presidency. On July 28, 1932, Hoover ordered the U.S. Army to remove the remaining veterans from Washington, D.C. The operation was placed under the command of General Douglas MacArthur, the Army's chief of staff. Assisting him were officers named Dwight D. Eisenhower and George S. Patton, men who would later become central figures in American military history. That afternoon, soldiers advanced toward the camps. They carried bayonets. They deployed tanks. Tear gas filled the streets. These soldiers were not confronting a foreign enemy. They were facing American veterans, many wearing old uniforms, medals pinned to worn jackets, standing alongside